Today we're taking care of a couple of maintenance issues. First being this oil coming out of here is obviously from a blown head gasket that's leaking oil, pushing out oil out through there, so we're going to take care of that. Also, last time I had the forks apart, one of the lower bushings was starting to gall a little bit. Some of the coating was coming off, so we're going to switch them all out and put in fresh oil. Let's see what else. I'm going to clean it up. It's filthy, you can see. Runs fine still, even with the head gasket blown, it runs fine. It's still smoking out the exhaust, which is due to oil seeping by one of the exhaust valve guides, or both of them. So I got some oversized guides that I'm going to try and put in. We'll see how it goes. Hey guys, just wanted to give everybody a quick update on the project I got going on here with the XR250R. I got the cylinder head off, so I blasted out the combustion chamber. I went ahead and used my valve spring compressor to take the valves, the exhaust valves out. You can see how much crust is on there. There's a lot of burned on oil. So I'm going to run that through wire wheel, get all that crap off. There's a lot of exhaust gunk built up in the exhaust ports, and anybody that knows anything about cylinder heads knows that they're all about flow for power. And so what I'm going to do, take my drill, and I've got a little bottle brush chucked up in there. I'm just going to get in there like this and just try to get as much of that stuff off as I can. One other thing I wanted to mention that almost happened to me twice is when you do have your valve spring compressor on there and you loosen, you're able to free the valve keepers. These little valve keepers are wedged in there and they're under a bit of pressure and they tend to go flying. So you want to have like a piece of cloth, or wrap it in something so that they kind of stay with you. Otherwise you're going to be in pretty bad shape if you lose one of those things. Got this thing propped up on a coil bracket. Got some penetrating oil in there sitting around the valve stem, but not going down into the bore of the valve stem. So I'm hoping tomorrow I won't see any penetrating oil seeping out around the valve stems down there. If I do, then I will change them out. Another thing you guys might be asking is like, hey Eric, isn't this a good time to bust out the Dremel tool and give the old head a port and polish? And the answer is yes, this would be a perfect time to do that. However, it's a lot more work involved. It's a few hours of sitting there with your Dremel grinding, and I've never done it before. Not that I'm afraid of it, but the idea is to polish the bores really nice and smooth. But if the exhaust ports are leaking oil past the guides again, then it's just going to build up with coke again, and then it's kind of all for naught anyway. And the other thing is, this is an XR250R, and anybody who's ever ridden one of those things knows that you're kind of riding a slug. It's kind of like the racing slug in the Never-Ending Story.
Sorry. Poor baby.
But a slug nevertheless. And so they're all about low-end torque, the upper end power, and that's where you're going to get the most gains from a port and polish. I believe is high-end, high RPM horsepower, where airflow is critical. That's not really what I'm going for. I just want a nice, reliable engine that doesn't burn oil. That's my goal. All right, so I got the forks off. Right side here, left side on the left. This is the top. After you get that unscrewed, well, when you're trying to unscrew that, the bottom's trying to turn because it's connected through a shaft in the center. Once you get that unscrewed and you initially tip it over and pour it into your drain pan, you want to stroke. I already did this, but you can see there's more dripping out now when I do it. You want to stroke this like you're playing a trombone. A rusty trombone. No. And that will aid the oil in getting past the valve body inside and get all that old oil out. I'm not going to take the whole thing apart. I'm just replacing the seals and the top and bottom bushings, and I do not need to disassemble the whole fork to do that. I got the fork bushings in, forks back together, new fork seals, dust seals, old boots just cleaned up. So that's done. I'm working on the cylinder head here. I got it all pretty cleaned up. So I got the valves in, no springs. I think I need a lap in the valves again, if you can listen to this. Okay, that's what it should sound like. And then the other one. There's a distinct tone difference. Hear that? So this one's not sealing as well as this one. I don't have any valve lapping compound. What you do is you put some compound in there and on the valve seat between there, and you spin the valve a bunch of times, and it kind of wears, it sands itself together to make a nice seat so that it seals. One thing you can use if you don't have valve grinding compound is toothpaste. So that's what we're going to try. Alright. So, this is Colgate Max Fresh. Put a little on the seat. It smells good. It smells minty fresh. And put a little, oh, look at the little mint flakes in there. Maybe by doing this, the exhaust will smell minty fresh when it starts up. Alright, don't try this at home, but I got the valve chucked in my drill. Go the reverse direction. Alright, let's see how that sounds now. Take the valve out, clean off all the toothpaste. Yep, but that sounds good. And spin it as you try it. It should sound like a... It's hard to describe, but it has a distinct sound when it's making a good seal. That sounds right. It worked. Now if I put the other one in, yep, I like that. I was changing the cylinder head gasket. It had been puking oil out the front of the cylinder head gasket. Here's the cylinder. Anyway, I found out why the gasket did spring a leak. It's because the threads, this is the front, the threads in there just completely pulled out. I went and screwed the original head bolt in. I've since cleaned up the threads on this, but that's not going to be usable anyway. So what I had to do was take the cylinder off, drill the threads out, and put a helicoil in there. I actually had to do that before on one of the other threads, which sucks, but the other one held just fine. I'm hoping the other one helicoil holds up just fine and is enough to give me 30 foot-pounds of clamping pressure on that head gasket, and she seals it up. Fingers crossed. Be sure to put a little oil up the inside of the cylinder wall. It'll smoke at first, but you need that piston to slide in easy. Piston skirts and crown. Make sure they're slippery. While this is out, I'm going to check my ring alignment, and they're still good. All the rings, looks like they haven't really moved at all. So we cool, man. We cool. Now, we assemble. These cylinder bolts. I'm just going to make sure the threads are nice and clean and they are wet with oil. That'll give you an accurate torque reading. Same with the cylinder head bolt washers. These should be wet to prevent cylinder head galling when you're torquing the bolts, and that allows them, when you're torquing them, to slip on that surface to give you an accurate torque reading. Wants to run. Now, drain all the oil, change that, should be good to go. Still smoking a little bit. I may take it for a proper warm-up ride and then recheck the torque on some nuts and bolts, maybe recheck that valve lash, and then I think, oh, and change the oil filter. I think we're good to go. So hopefully, fingers crossed, all is well.
Hey guys, I've been riding around the XR all week after the head gasket change and fix last week, and I'm happy to report that there seems to be no more smoke. So I think my head gasket fixed the problem. So the only thing left to do is put new shoes on the old bike. Through the magic of movie editing, presto changeo. New rubber. Golden Tire GT216AA fatty on the front, Pirelli MT43 Trials tire on the back. I really like this combination on this particular bike. It seems to hook up really well. The only thing left to do, I'm going to shed some of the weight off the top, take her out to the desert for a proper rip and see how she performs. Stay tuned.